Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Ma'am, your voice is coming very low, I think.
Okay, 1 second.
Ma'am, your
Yeah.
voice is not visible. Sorry, audible, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, it should be okay now. Fine. Is it better?
Yes, ma'am. Better.
Looking
Yes,
good,
yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. So, not all of this. Did you have a class before this?
We have
Yes, ma'am.
completed.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning,
Okay.
ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning. So,
Good morning, ma'am.
right. Just 10 minutes before the class ends, can you remind me to wrap up? Because I think even yesterday and the day before, I took a few more minutes than I should have. So I'll wrap up the class at that time because I think you again have a class after this, right?
Yes,
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 ma'am.
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 Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
remind me
Remind.
10 minutes before 11:50? So I'll start wrapping up, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay,
Sure.
ma'am.
All right. Now we'll start.
Ma'am, we stopped near Taj trapezium case.
Yes, we were talking about the industrialization being the reason for environmental degradation, I think.
And you told you'll tell about the Palar River case, the citation and actual case name.
Yes, yes, Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum. Okay. I just a second, I'll tell you. 1 second. Yeah, so it's Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum versus the Union of India. Okay. AIR 1990, SEC 1996. All right, I'll repeat the Pala River case, and then I had an email saying that you couldn't hear me when I was talking about LK Koolwal. So I'll repeat that, and I'll repeat the Pala River case also. Okay. Okay, so LK Koolwal versus State of Rajasthan. The case was that the municipal corporation of the city of Jaipur said we cannot provide our citizens with a clean and sanitary environment because we are not well funded. Okay, the state doesn't have funds to take care of whatever unsanitary conditions were there in the city. Okay, sewage system was an open sewage system. They couldn't take care of all of that because they were not funded. So the Supreme Court over here said that Article 21 is a fundamental right, and the right to life includes the right to live in a clean and sanitary environment. And you cannot refute that to the citizens only on the basis of you not having enough funds. Okay. So funds were allocated later by the central government to the state government, and this was taken care of. They were also given certain directions, so as to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Okay, so even if the state doesn't have, money to take care of it, these are the welfare functions of our state. Okay, and that needs to be taken care of. So that was LK Koolwal versus state of Rajasthan. We see all the cases that we are talking about, environmental law, this the environmental jurisprudence is based on these case laws only. Okay, so you cannot compartmentalize now that LK Koolwal, if there's a question about urbanization being a source of environmental degradation, I will only put LK Koolwal over there since it is there in the slide and since that is the context in which I talked about it. Okay, you have to, if now after you are done with the whole unit, if I talk to you about, development of environmental law in India, apart from writing whatever fundamental right and DPSP and all of those things, case laws are what you need to focus on, right? So LK Koolwal, when they stay, so this is in the 80s, somewhere in the 1980s. When they talk about this case, you can understand that they are trying to put responsibility on the state for maintaining, the environment, for environmental preservation. So you could mention this in the Genesis part also. So here you have to apply your mind. Okay, when questions are put in the exam, I don't ask like straightforward questions. Okay, whatever is mentioned in the book or the PPT or whatever reading material. So now you have all the facts, all the information. You apply your mind and be as creative as possible. You can use T. Damodar Rao not just to say that urbanization is causing environmental degradation, but for so many other things. This is how it has developed in India, right? Environmental jurisprudence has developed in India. Okay. Now the next case you wanted me to talk about is Palar River case. That was Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum versus the Union of India in 1996. So it was similar to the Ganga pollution case. Okay, MC Mehta versus Union of India. Yesterday we saw that in the Ganga pollution case, because of you know what tanneries are, right? Leather manufacturing industries or factories. These are called tanneries.
The waste of the leather is being left into the rivers.
Yes, correct. So waste is being disposed of into the rivers is fine, but it is untreated waste. Okay. That is the qualifier here. Since this waste is untreated, now you have waste treatment plants also. So whatever waste is being produced in your industry or factory, you have it go through a treatment, and then if it is let out into the environment, it wouldn't be as harmful as letting out untreated effluents from any factory. Okay. So these treatment plants make sure whatever harmful chemicals are there present in the waste of your manufacturing process, it is absorbed before it is let out into the water, land, air, whatever. Okay. So at that time, they weren't, they weren't following all of these waste treatment practices. And that's why tanneries at that place also let out their whatever untreated waste into the Palar River, and that got contaminated to the extent that the villagers in and around that place they started having health problems due to this. Okay, and obviously you are polluting a water body, so that in itself is reason enough for the state to take cognizance or the courts to take cognizance and come up with measures, right? Administrative or legislative and legislative measures, whatever. But it was affecting human life also at that time. Now this is the 80s. I told you, do you remember the anthropocentric approach and the ecocentric approach in the introductory class? I think the second class we talked about that.
Yes, ma'am.
What was
Yes,
that? Yes, what was that?
First, everything was based on human being at the center,
Yes.
and now environment is being at the center.
Great, yes. So this Palar River case, which is the Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum, from this case, they started changing their approach. So even Palar River case happened, PIL was filed by this. So Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum is the non-governmental organization working for the welfare of the citizens. Okay. So when only when it was affecting the human beings and their daily life and their health, did they take any cognizance about it and they filed a PIL. Okay. But the point is, so this was the anthropocentric approach. But the point is that the river, the water body being polluted itself is reason enough for you to file a PIL and get injunctions and whatever appropriate remedies, right? That is the ecocentric approach. So the court over here talked about a shift from anthropocentric to ecocentric approach. But in the later years, we see how now we discuss the I think the wild lion case also, right? The Worldwide Forum India, WWE India, all of those cases. The Asiatic lion case we discussed. Conservation of, yes. So that is something which is an ecocentric approach. Even though saving the Asiatic wild lion does not have an immediate result on the quality of human life, right? but it will have far-reaching effects. Now, I don't need to discuss this, that how if you know, even if a microorganism in the ecology is disturbed, it will have far-reaching effects, right? So the wild lion being a very important part of the food chain, how everything will change if the wild lion is no more there. Hmm. Yeah. Are you saying something? Okay, I think you have unmuted your mic, so mute your mics, okay? And unmute when you want to say something. Now, right. So that is the ecocentric approach, that even though it does not have an immediate effect, you know, preserving or saving the Asiatic wild lion does not have an immediate effect on the human population as such in a few months or years, but it will have a far-reaching effect. So the fact that some species going to be extinct is reason enough for you to take action. That's the ecocentric approach, okay? And it started from the Fellow Citizens Welfare case. They started shifting their approach from this case, okay? Now, coming to just quickly, this is something which has to be covered. This is in your syllabus. So, types of pollution. Obviously, so earlier we were talking about environmental degradation, the causes and everything. Okay. Now, types of pollution. Natural. There are natural disasters which happen due to which pollution is caused, like volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, etc. We had discussed earlier also. Now, man-made pollutions. So, air pollution, it is not limited to whatever I have mentioned over here, but majorly when you look at case laws and you know, happenings in and around the country and world, you see these things are the major ones which are dominating the reasons. But this is not an exhaustive list. Okay. So, all of you know the case of Delhi, right? A few years ago, and even now, when it is the winter season, how Delhi is one of the highly most polluted countries, sorry, cities in the world. So that is because of various reasons, that agricultural waste is burnt at that time and so many other things. But you know, carbon dioxide and other harmful elements in the air, they exceed permissible limits, and that's what causes air pollution. This is not just talking about specifically Delhi's case, but in any at any point in time, if permissible limits, some any gas or whatever element is crossing those limits, it will be air pollution. Okay. Other examples are acid rain, like we talked about yesterday, in which case acid rain,
Large trapezium case.
large trapezium, right? So acid rain, sulfuric acid.
Sulfuric acid.
Yes, yes, great. Okay. Greenhouse effect is increase of CO2 levels, and you know, that leads to air pollution. You have water pollution. Now, climate change. Why have I mentioned in when talking about water pollution? Effluents is one thing, like we talked about tanneries and other you know, industries throwing out toxic waste into the environment, which is untreated. The waste is untreated, so that's effluents. But why has climate change mentioned? Yeah. Yes. Are you saying something? And if you're not saying something, you have to say something, because I'm asking you a question.
Sorry, ma'am, that my mic has on itself.
No problem. So answer the question now, that why climate change is mentioned in water pollution.
Ma'am, maybe it affects the water cycle or.
Yeah. So even though it's affecting the water cycle is what our initial thought is, but ultimately that leads to water pollution, right? The seawater running into plains and everything. So that's water pollution. Then you have land pollution caused due to deforestation, but we have already discussed how urbanization and migration from villages to the urban areas leads to land pollution, right? So as a result of urbanization, there'll be deforestation, there'll be mining, you are not following sustainable agricultural practices. Arnish Agarwal is requesting me to give him control of the class. Do you want to present? Okay. At least be attentive of what you are doing on your screens. If you're not listening to me, take care of what you are clicking and everything at least. Okay. Right. Noise pollution. Do we have a specific law for noise pollution?
Yes, ma'am.
Which one? Which is that law? Yes? Who said yes, ma'am?
Uhas.
Do not have
Very
certain
good.
decibel limit should be followed.
Okay, you have to be louder.
A certain decibel limit should be followed.
Right. Where is that written? I'm asking you what is the law regarding this. Anyway, so Environmental Protection Act of 86, under that there are noise pollution control rules of 2000. Okay, because there are a lot of students who would say the Noise Pollution Act or the Noise Pollution Control Act. It's not like that. We have the Environmental Protection Act, under which there are specific rules governing and regulating noise pollution. Okay, so that is where the law lies. Now,
Excuse me,
Meghna, stop requesting control, please. I will
Sorry,
seriously.
ma'am, that was by mistake, ma'am.
Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yes?
you said it doesn't come under Noise Pollution Act. Are you saying it doesn't come under Noise Pollution?
See, earlier we had that act, but now we have the Environmental Protection Act, under which they make rules. So the Environmental Protection Act itself says that there has to be certain rules, and that is a different document. Okay, noise.
The noise protection control rules comes under the Environmental Act. So if we use a noise pollution control rules, it's the same.
Yes, so the parent legislation is the environmental, like you're saying, Environmental Act.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
under that we have rules. Okay. All right. Now, yes, another type of pollution is radioactive pollution. Like we talked about so many cases, instances earlier in the introductory class. We have the Chernobyl, we have 3 Mile Island, and so many other cases about radioactive pollution, right? So disposal is a huge problem here. Okay, how do you dispose of radioactive waste? That's an even bigger problem than using that the nuclear power properly. How to dispose of the waste? Okay, since it's extremely harmful, carcinogenic in nature, and all of those harmful effects we have discussed earlier. Okay, now I will discuss the Indian perspective for need of environmental law, and then I'll sum up whatever I have covered up until now, and then I'll start the constitutional perspective. Okay. Now, earlier we had laws governing environmental protection, but there was no regime as such. Okay, so the Tiwari committee was set up. Now this was headed by N.D. Tiwari. Okay, he was at that time the deputy chairman of Planning Commission. Who is N.D. Tiwari?
He was the Chief
Tiwari
Minister of Uttar Pradesh.
Yes.
He was the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh.
Governor of Andhra Pradesh also.
Yes, Governor, ma'am.
Yes, he held a lot of
Constitutional
positions, and one
Yes.
among that was he was the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Governor of Andhra Pradesh, Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, and the Deputy Chairman of Planning Commission, among other things. Okay, so that he headed the Tiwari committee, and the purpose of coming up with this committee was that they needed administrative and legislative measures to deal with environmental protection, right? So they realized there is no consolidated law as such. Now, okay. Can you think of any other area of law where this kind of a regime recently was needed? Okay, so I will be able to draw a parallel and then you will understand better. Any major amendments made and then the whole regime is changed and now we have a consolidated law. Any area of law, I'm talking about India, that you can identify.
The wage code.
Yes, the wage code, you have the social security code now, the draft code, and so
insolvency and bankruptcy.
yes, exactly. When I think of environmental laws being all over the place and haphazard, the insolvency regime is what comes to mind. Okay, just like the insolvency. So if earlier you had the Sarfasi Act and you had so many other acts governing insolvency, right? Now you have the IBC. Similarly, they also had a lot of laws and provisions related to environmental protection were all scattered in so many places under so many laws. So the Tiwari committee tried to study whatever laws are there and they identified that there are around 200 pieces of legislation in which environmental protection provisions are there. So they suggested that we need a consolidated regime to take control of environmental preservation, right? Now these are the 5 areas that they pointed out that we need to look at all of these areas and come up with a law. That was the land and water management. Okay, now I think that will be clear. What are natural living resources?
Coal,
Trees.
coal, and all those, which are found naturally.
Living resources.
Natural resources is fine. Natural living resources I'm talking about.
Trees.
Fauna.
Organisms.
Yes, organisms. Now, next you said environment impact assessment. What is that?
Could you please repeat?
Provisions for environmental impact assessment. But what is that? You can even, make a guess literally what you understand by this term.
Your voice is not audible.
That you guys are not participating today.
Impact of.
Ma'am, can you repeat? Ma'am, you're not
audible, ma'am.
audible properly.
All right. I'm saying, am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm saying environment impact assessment is something which was recommended by the Tiwari committee. Okay, that our laws should mandate environment impact assessment. What is this environment impact assessment?
Impact on the environment of any prospective exploitation.
Yes. So any industrial activity or anything like that being set up, you need to have an environment impact assessment done. There is a report which comes out. So even before you start, setting up that particular activity, there is an impact assessment. This becomes very important because the authorities would know whether to give permission or not to whatever project it is, right? So in this report, they will mention what will be the impact of, say for example, it's a mining operation. So there will be deforestation in whatever area that the mine is supposed to be dug. The authorities can check what will be the effect on ecology of this deforestation, right? What will be the effect of digging a mine over there? So this is environment impact assessment, which wasn't present before. And now they wanted to introduce it in whatever regime that was going to be set up. Then you have human settlement. So urbanization had started at that point in time and even before that. So they wanted to take care of urban planning and such things. Okay, so they have allied rules and policies for that. Then you have environmental education and awareness. These are the 5 points which you need to keep in mind when we talk about Tiwari committee, because all of their recommendations, they revolved around these points. Okay.
Ma'am, this is only for Andhra Pradesh or for all India?
No. Okay. No, not. Why for Andhra Pradesh? Because he was the governor of Andhra Pradesh.
Could you please repeat about human settlements?
Okay, human settlement, this point is related to urbanization, right? Because people are migrating from the villages to the cities, to the urban areas. So they wanted to make sure that environmental preservation is done. There is no degradation, like we discussed in the earlier slide, that urbanization causes a lot of pollution and degradation of the environment. So for that, there should be proper urban planning. There should be permissions which need to be taken for whatever human settlement or industries that you want to start, all of those things. Okay. But this is not only for Andhra Pradesh. He became the governor of Andhra Pradesh so many years after 1980. Okay, this is, committee and commission reports, right? Whenever any law needs to be first of all set up, or there need to be radical amendments or changes, the government realizes that whatever law is currently in place is not sufficient to address the problems whatever are arising. It will form a committee, and that committee has the responsibility of looking into the legal regime, and it will come out with a report in a few months or a few years, and say that these are the problems in the law and this is how it needs to be changed. Okay. So this was for the whole of India, whatever laws were there in India. Okay. All right. Then now.
Ma'am?
Yes.
When was this committee formed?
1980, and it gave its report also in 1980, late 1980, something like that. Okay.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Ma'am, is there any time period for EIA for the environmental assessment, ma'am? Like how authorities will assess?
Yes. So this happens when, like I told you yesterday, right, that they don't just get up and start their operations or anything. This is a huge time period where they need to obtain permissions. When you want to set up an industry, it's not a very easy task. Okay, it might be an easy task to set up the machines and start the work, but it's very difficult to gain permissions and all. Okay, now there are certain limits that after submitting the report within 60 days, 30 days, 90 days, you have to have a response. But all of that depends so there are levels of impact assessment, there are levels of permissions being granted, which we'll see in the legislations. Okay, depending on the industry, permission. Yeah. Yes.
And for how long this assessment will be made? Like, will they see for next 10 years the environment impact will be this, or for next 20 years if this industry establishes the impact will be this? For how long?
Yes, I'll tell you. So the question that you're asking goes into the area of precautionary principle, right? I will tell you how we have also shifted to precautionary principle being the leading force into how decisions are made for giving permissions and all. So with precautionary principle, you cannot be careful enough. So even if the other side is able to bring up any point, say 100 years down the line, that this can be an impact of this particular settlement, it could be cancelled also. But then again, over here, the task of the judiciary comes in, that they have to balance environmental protection and development. Okay, just because after 1,000 years something is going to happen, you cannot stop development right now. But the adjudicating authorities have to see what is that thing which is going to happen 1,000 years down the line. Is it so detrimental that we should stop development? Is it so detrimental that we should stop producing whatever the product is? So it will depend from case to case. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, the person who is asking for this permission, he will need to make sure that his case is watertight. Okay, it's impregnable at any cost, because these questions can arise. That 100 years down the line, you will disturb the ecology of this place, and that's why you cannot set up an industry over here. That could happen. So it will depend on the type of industry, the area which you are proposing to acquire and start your practices on. Okay. All right. Now, so after the Tiwari committee gave its report, it was felt that we need a regime controlling environmental preservation and protection, and also as a result of that, the ministry was set up. Okay, what is the name of the ministry today? After Tiwari committee recommended, there were departments, environment departments, which are set up in the central and state levels. Now we have an independent ministry. Shortly after that, they also formed a ministry. What is the name of the ministry?
Ministry of Environment.
Wow.
Environment, Forest and Climate Change.
Yes. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay, that is the name of the ministry. All right. Now, all right, like I told you, review of whatever acts are there. And one important point which was recommended over in the Tiwari committee is that we did not have enough laws for toxic substances, right? We did not have proper laws for how to dispose of those substances, how to deal with radioactive substances and effluents, other waste from industries. So we need laws for that also. All right, so all of this culminated into the enactment of the Environmental Protection Act, or the Environment Act also some people call it, of 1986. Along with this, there is a lot of judicial discourse that we need to look at, how cases evolved, and it gave rise to the environmental jurisprudence as we know it today. Recently, a high-level committee had been formed in 2014. Okay, the Subramanian Committee, it's called. Now, so you know the last assignment, right? Everybody knows I gave you the assignment about religious and cultural practices.
Yes.
Yes.
That you have to.
Yes, ma'am.
That we have to discuss tomorrow. Now for Monday, since you will have Sunday as an off, on Monday, you people will come to me and tell me what are the recommendations of the high level committee. Okay, the recommendations of this committee are in the nature that we need to have a single window system for environmental clearances. Okay, because it is big now. Why do you think that this committee has suggested in this way? First of all, what is single window system?
Single.
We will discuss. Okay, let me just say one second. We will discuss the recommendations of this committee in detail, but I want you to come up with what are the recommendations and how much of that has been adopted in the laws. Okay, now one of the suggestions, or rather recommendations, is that a single window system. What is that?
Faster clearances.
Faster clearances. And for what, why is it desirable? Okay. You see, since I think 2014 and 15, since that time, the government has been trying to come up with a conducive environment for business in India, right? That is why it has come up with the insolvency regime. It is trying to, loosen certain rules in the FDI and everything. So it is to create a conducive environment for business in India, for foreign investment in India. And this also speaks to that, right? If you have a single window system, you will have faster clearances and it will be a bit easier to set up business in India. So for that reason, and not for just for this law, for any law, it is if there is a single window system, it's easier to gain clearances, right? So similarly, there are good recommendations by the Subramanian Committee. They also want a single regulatory authority, all of those things, okay? So you go to the PRS site, okay? Either you read the whole report, which I'm sure you won't do. So you go to the PRS website, and over there, there will be the major recommendations given in 1 or 2 pages. Have a look at those and try to come up with reasons. Okay, why would they recommend in this way? Okay, what will be the problem which is addressed using this recommendation? All right, and we'll discuss on Monday. Tomorrow we are going to discuss the religious and cultural practices. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Is this
Yes, ma'am.
this assignment okay for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it is too
Ma'am,
much.
can we come up with the two or more religious impacts or like practices?
Yes, I would like that. See, I asked students to come up with religious and cultural practices because it is impossible to for one person to cover all the cultural practices, regional practices in India, right? So even if you are looking at just one part where you live or where you come from or any other part of the country that you're interested in, there will be so many cultural practices we could have a look at. That would be great.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Now, okay, Magna Carta on Human Environment. Stockholm Declaration is called the Magna Carta on Human Environment, right? It was the first international UN conference on human environment. Now, why is it called the Magna Carta? First of all, what is Magna Carta?
How did you move to the other slide? Because I'm still on the high level committee.
Okay. No, I moved to Magna Carta on Human Environment. That is the slide which is open right now.
I'm not able to see that.
Even I am on the same slide, ma'am.
Okay. Now?
No, ma'am. Still the same slide.
Nobody is able to see.
It's visible now.
Now, ma'am, it got changed, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, Stockholm Declaration of 1972 is also called the Magna Carta on Human Environment. You first tell me what is Magna Carta.
Magna Carta means something of great character. Like for the Indian Constitution, it's fundamental rights.
No. Magna Carta was the first
Something
constitution
significant for
signed
the
by King John in England.
Yes, somebody
Granting rights
said
to the
King
back.
John.
Ma'am, this is the federal agencies to evaluate the environmental impacts of their actions.
Okay, what did you say? Federal? Again, come again.
What, ma'am? Ma'am, your voice is...
I'm saying, I asked the question, what is Magna Carta?
Okay.
Ma'am, may I?
Yes, please.
Magna Carta was the first draft of constitution or basis of constitution that was approved or signed by King John, granting barons to right to giving them some autonomy. So what Magna Carta basically means is the first draft or first step towards something. So Stockholm Declaration was the first of its kind. That's why it's called Magna Carta.
Great. Yes. Like, so who was speaking? I think Uma was speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
Anchit, I said that.
Before.
Yes. So you're right. Okay. It was King John who gave. So this is the Anglo-Saxon jurisprudence, right? The Britishers, how they developed the idea of rights. Okay. So King John gave some autonomy, and that the Magna Carta it was called, and it contained certain rights. It also said that sovereign is subject to the rule of law. Okay, so it was monumental at that time, this kind of a document, and it was not accepted by a lot of people, and there was a lot of struggle, and centuries later these rights started to develop. But it is used in the sense that anything which is a kind of the first instrument which is formed and gaining inspiration from that, the jurisprudence comes in. Okay, so when we talk about human environment, Stockholm Declaration is the Magna Carta on that. All right. Now, right, in that conference, so it was held in Stockholm, and there were 26 principles which were resolved in that conference. Okay, at that time, Indira Gandhi was our leader. Okay, and she was very proactive in in dealing with whatever was being said in the Stockholm Declaration, and she agreed to it, and a lot of legislations were later passed in pursuance of the Stockholm Declaration. Right now, okay, tell me how do you read international law into the national law? Are you know the concept of monist and dualist countries, right? When I say that Stockholm Declaration, in pursuance of that, we legislated on so many things in India at home, right? So, which means that international law has now become the municipal law, or the domestic law also you could call it. How is that done? Are we a monist country? Are we a dualist country? And how do we read international agreements into our national law? International law is done, public international law?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No?
We have it in this semester, ma'am.
This semester we are
Okay.
dealing with that.
Okay. I just presume that you would know. Okay, that was my bad. So what happens is how anything like a declaration, or you must have come across UNCITRAL models, or so many international instruments. That is international law, right? That's not binding on anyone. It's only by consent that this works. Okay, only if I'm agreeable to a certain thing, I will do it, and if I don't, there are no consequences to not following international law. But there are consequences in the nature of sanctions and all. Okay, that the countries will boycott you, and you will not have a lot of negotiation power. All of this you will study when you read public international law. All right. So for our purpose, I'll just explain limited to what we should know over here. So what happens is something like a Stockholm Declaration. Over there, the head of our state agreed to coming up with legislation on clean air, or sustainable development. Okay, for that you need to have a Water Act and all of those things. Now, when she committed over there, you need to the international law will not just apply as is to us, to India. Okay, because we are a sovereign, right? We are not controlled by any other authority or any other country. So how do you apply the Stockholm Declaration here at home, here in India? Okay, so you convert that into a domestic law. Okay, and how that is done now, at least you are done with constitutional law.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to understand what I'm saying right now about international and domestic law, municipal law?
Yes, ma'am.
Not
That
properly, ma'am.
very yes, ma'am. It was like, okay, I have to say something.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you, ma'am, but then you told me to remind you 5 minutes before the class ends.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'll just end with this particular concept. Okay. So just for right now, for your understanding, so PIL is something, public international law, which I mean is something you will study as a subject. But for now, understand that Stockholm Declaration is an international instrument, right? Under the aegis of the UN, they agreed to do something. Correct? The heads of the state, they agreed to say, adopt sustainable development means. Okay, for example, they agreed to this. Now, they agreed to it on an international level is fine, but how do you come and incorporate it in the laws of India? Okay, so for that, the constitution has an enabling section. It is called enabling provision, not a section. Okay, so what is that? How can you incorporate international agreements into domestic law in India? There is a constitutional power which is given to the parliament. Okay, that the parliament can legislate to fulfill any obligations under an international agreement. Okay, so if Indira Gandhi at that time she entered into an international agreement that we will follow sustainable ways of development. The parliament, when she came back, the parliament now has a right to come up with laws, with acts which are in consonance with that agreement. Okay, so this is called fulfilling obligations under certain international agreements. Okay, so you tell me under the constitution which is the provision which lets you do this. Just because Stockholm Declaration was a declaration doesn't mean that we are bound by it. For us to be bound by it, we need a law, right? A municipal law, a domestic law, a law which has been made by the legislative body in India. And the constitution gives the parliament the power to legislate on any international agreement which has been entered into by a legitimate head of the state. I'll repeat again. Okay. The constitution has an enabling provision and it gives the power to the parliament to legislate on anything mentioned in an international agreement, and this international agreement was entered into by a legitimate head of the state. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
So my next question is, what is this provision in the constitution? बेटा ऐसे बिल्कुल नहीं होता है. You have to know your constitutional law at least. I understand you don't know public international law. Okay, that's why I left out the concepts of dualist and monist countries and all of those things. But constitutional law you need to know. Whether you aim to be a practitioner, you want to go into the corporate, academics, whatever. This is a very important section, article in the constitution.
Ma'am, Article 253.
What does it say?
It says that the Indian Parliament has sovereign power to legislate to implement any treaty or agreement made with any other country.
Yes, correct. Absolutely right. It's Article 253, okay, which gives the power to the legislature, the parliament, to make laws on any international agreement which is entered into by the country, the head of the country with any other country, or it's a multilateral or bilateral agreement, whatever. Okay, that is the enabling provision. Anyway, I'll continue with this in the next class. All right. Now, just one thing I need to know, whether tomorrow's class is something like a doubt clearing session or is it a class? Because, I mean, I was told that there's a doubt clearing session on Saturday.
It's considered as a tutorials, like doubt.
No. Okay, your voice is breaking. Can you repeat?
Ma'am, it is a doubt clearing session.
Yes, ma'am. Saturday classes are considered as tutorial classes.
Okay.
So, like doubt clearance sessions only.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if a tutorial class is there, is the attendance mandatory for that class?
Yes.
Yeah, it will be. I think it is mandatory attendance, and because director sir told me there's a doubt clearing session on Saturdays, so that's why I asked. But attendance will be mandatory.
Ma'am, can you share the PPT?
Okay, so somebody else also asked me for the PPT. Actually, as and when I keep teaching, I keep updating the PPT, but I'll upload the PPT up until the national perspective, what we have covered today. Okay, that I'll upload. All right. Okay. And tomorrow you come prepared with the religious practices. Okay, though it is a doubt clearing session, I will take it for 5 minutes at least. Religious and cultural practices. All right.
Okay,
Sure,
ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, can we
Ma'am.
leave?
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, can you take up this Magna Carta again tomorrow, like in brief?
Yeah. See, that's not that's a doubt clearing session, right? Whatever was not clear throughout up until now, I'll repeat. No.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you.
Ma'am, can we leave?
Yes. Please leave. I'm waiting for you guys to leave because I know that you are here and you are fooling around. Even
Okay,
when
ma'am.
I leave.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
వ్యాపారం ఉంది ఆవులు అందరూ పిక్ అప్లోడ్ చేసి అంత వేసి పోతుంది యూట్యూబ్ లేదు
Now Rohan, Nihal, Samir, Raghuveer, Vivek, Shrestha. Why are you not leaving?